old glory here. So I pledge allegiance to the flag
Flag
of the
of the
United States of America and to the
to the
republic for
republic
which it
for which it
stands,
stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty
and
and
justice
justice
for
for
all.
all.
Thank you all. It's important that we maintain our town traditions throughout this COVID. Okay, do we have any guests? I guess, actually, we're going to get to Fred later. I don't know if Chris wants to say anything as a guest, or you're just here for a good time.
Just here for a good time. Thanks for asking.
Okay.
Hey, Chris.
Okay, that's all right, let's move forward on the agenda. So you all got a copy of the electronic minutes. Are there any additions or corrections?
None.
If not, is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
Second?
Second.
Great. All in favor, aye?
Okay.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. You got a copy of the police report that was forwarded. It looked fairly routine. Any comments on that report? Okay. The next one is the code enforcement officer's report, which you should all have gotten today. Well, let's take a look at that. So you see the first item there is the Route 21 perpetual yard sale. And the last sentence that Steve makes here is that a follow-up letter from the attorney not to restart in the spring may lend more legal weight than just from me. So I don't know if that means that's what he's going to request, or I think I'll contact him and see what. Whoa.
Well, I
Cheer it up. Does that help or hinder?
I just lost everybody.
I'm sharing up the report. Is it
Oh,
more of a pain to see it on the screen? Would you rather?
no, I like that. Why don't put it on the screen? That'd be nice. I haven't got to look for it on my.
yeah, okay, if you can do that.
Right now, we're just seeing your email, I think, Fian.
Oh yeah.
Steve says in his report that I will need to contact attorney now. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I guess that's what his intention is. And
That's how I read it.
Did you, Jan, did you see Steve this week?
No, I talked to him on the phone. And I think that's his intent, is that she's pretty much not selling much over there right now. So he just figured it'd be easier in the spring prior to her even being able to start selling, like I'd say late winter, to get a letter from the attorney and telling her she can't. I went by there today and I have never seen so many bicycles in my
That's
life.
awful.
There's bicycles on both sides. In the very back, if you go by, there are, oh my gosh, there's probably 500 bikes in there.
Yeah.
Real.
There's
I
a lot
know
of
she's-
bikes.
I'd volunteer to take them away for her. Scrap's up right now.
Yeah, well, you can throw them in the dumpster down at the town. Okay, I'll just follow up with Steve and make sure he does that, because I think that's a good idea. The next one we have here is Ray Palmer with his gravel operations on Route 21. And Steve has called him to task as to what he says, what Ray says he's been doing, and what in fact he actually has been doing. But Jan did say that he came in to get a permit and he didn't have a site plan, so he went back to the drawing board. So he knows what he has to do, and we'll wait until he comes forward with the proper application.
But that's more than a matter of a zoning issue. Isn't there also a state mining requirement?
If he has more than, I think, so 1,000 tons or something like that, there's a limit under which, if he stays, he's not subject to DEP, but he's still subject to town.
Right.
It can take 1,000 cubic feet, I believe it is, a year.
Okay.
Yeah, it didn't seem like it was very much when we looked into it at one point.
I think it's
Well, and then
1,000
the other
feet.
thing is, who is going to monitor that? That's another question, but we're going to have to take one step at a time. And
Yep.
he's going to have to get a special use permit, which will require a public hearing. So he's got some steps to go through.
Yeah.
Okay. The others look fairly routine. New home for on Kelby Snyder's property, trailer at Van Skyver's, geothermal system for Eileen Powell. Crosby Mart, they're spending, I think, Jan, it was $150,000 on their renovation. Do I have the right number?
I believe it was right around there, all interior.
So that'll be good. And then Schillings want to rebuild a garage. So any comments on the report?
Can we ask Steve to put addresses and street names, because I don't know the items by people's names usually.
Right. That's a good point. We can ask.
I understand, but you don't know unless you ask.
Okay.
Ma'am,
Yeah, that's
may I ask a question?
Yeah.
On the geothermal system, is that system a continuous loop, or does it take groundwater and then discharge it to the road ditch?
I have no idea. Did you hear anything about that, Jan?
There's a bunch of paperwork here. I don't know if I can go through it quick and even determine that or not. There's a whole project report here from the company.
Well, it's just something that you might want to consider, because in especially up here in the uplands above Alfred, when the aquifers are riding the shale, and we drilled a well to 158 feet, and it's not heavy on recharge. And if a geothermal system were put in that extracts water from that and extracts the heat and then discharges it to the road ditch, that might affect nearby wells.
The comment on this map here says ground up geothermal system, horizontal closed loop heat exchangers, water furnace.
Closed loop, that's music to my ears. Okay.
All right. Thanks for bringing that up, Fred.
Mhm.
Any other comments on the code enforcement report? Okay. Monthly report. Jan, any comments on the financials?
No, I think you all got the email from the state today saying that we will be getting our complete state aid, and that should have been, it's direct deposit into our bank account, and I don't have that bank statement yet. I'm going to check with the bank tomorrow and see if we've received it yet. But this is exactly what we budgeted. So
That's for this fiscal year,
that's for
right?
this fiscal
2020.
year, correct. And next year, I don't know what they're going to do, but we won't get it again until December. If that seems to be the time frame they've changed. It used to be September we'd get it. Now it's December that they hit the county, because this is coming out of the county sales tax.
Right. Well, that's good news for this year.
Yes.
Okay. It looks like we did not have any correspondence. Is that correct?
I think the only thing I had that I forgot to send you was, I don't know if you remember last year, the county asked if we wanted to raise the exemption amount for seniors and for the senior exemption. And we raised it, you did raise it last year. So I just have to let them know if you're gonna raise it again this year or not. I think you raised it to 6,000, I believe.
Is the county raising theirs this year?
No,
I don't think we have any need to then, do we?
Probably not, given the fiscal year we anticipate coming up.
Agreed.
Any comments on that? I think I'm okay if we just leave it as it is for this year, since we just raised it.
I agree.
Okay. The abstracts, general abstracts. You all got a copy of that. There wasn't much there.
no, we've been trying not to spend much.
It looks like we did not. You accomplished your goal.
Very careful.
Yeah, that's good. Okay, is there a motion to pay these bills?
I'll make a motion.
Thank you. I'll
I'll
second it.
Oh, go ahead.
Okay, sorry. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, it carries. Now the highway abstracts. Again, it looks fairly routine.
Bob is on now if you have any questions.
Okay. New tire, I guess the big one was new tires for the Sterling.
Wasn't that last month?
No, that was for the
No.
back.
That was the match.
Okay.
No, that was,
So how many tires is that, Bob?
8. Let me see. It'd be 8 tires on the Sterling.
Yeah,
Wow.
I haven't bought tires since Brad left.
yeah, I'm sure they needed them, but that doesn't seem like a bad price. $600 a tire. Everything else looks fairly routine. Any comments on the highway abstract? Is there a motion to pay?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you all. Bob, the highway report, you're on.
Oh, we fixed a trailer hub on the trailer, put a plow frame on the pickup, worked on the sanders on the trucks, fixed the windshield wipers on the grader, greased trucks, worked on the Sterling, and overbowed it, and the box got bent. We fixed it in house and overbought the supplies. Sanded roads, put new tires on the Mack, fixed Sterling drive shaft, helped Andover out with the excavator, hauled salt, sand, and helped the village of Alfred out with the excavator. Be fixed. Some spots on Sherman Road, removed trees, helped Allegheny County plow 12. Started pulling shoulders on East Valley, washed grader, put it into cold storage, and plowed and sanded roads, checked roads, and mine safety training in Elman.
What's that mean?
What's that?
Mine safety.
It's a thing that we have to take. So if we go on lake down to Elman, because the town of Elman owns their own gravel pit, if we go in there, we have to have this training.
Okay, that makes sense to me. Thank you.
I got a question, Bob.
Yeah.
When we got the new grader, there was talk about if we could change over the V-plow mounting bracket or whatever. Did that end up working one way or the other?
I didn't monkey with that yet, Matt, but
Okay.
we can because they're bolts on, bolts off. So
Okay. I wasn't sure where that ended up, and that's the only thing you ever might use the grader for in the winter, right?
You're right. Yep. Yeah, I haven't got that far in monkey with that yet.
Okay.
So it looks like the trucks are good to go for winter, Bob, as far as you can tell,
Yep. I hope so, knock on wood.
right? Okay, any other comments, questions for Bob? Okay. Supervisors report.
Dan, did you want to talk about that local law that Bob wants to
Yeah.
change on all-night
Yeah,
parking?
I've got that on my list here.
Okay,
Might as well start with it. Did you send a copy out of the existing law,
Yeah.
Jan?
and the proposed one.
Okay. So, Bob, you want to tell us why you're proposing this?
Well, yeah, I've seen some people on the side of the road like hunters and parked cars on the side of the road, and I kind of asked them because the reason why is it's hard when there's a vehicle parked on the side of the road to plow roads or sand them. So one night there, when the winter started, this is how this all came out. When this snow came, there's a car parked on the side of the road, the plow truck coming around the corner, and here was a car and another car coming at us. The car decided to swerve and hit the parked car, not hitting the plow truck. So then I got thinking, maybe this should happen. Then we had a bunch of deer hunters parked on the side of the road. I talked to the deer hunters, asking them to see if they could park somewhere else. And they brought the local law up saying, hey, your town law says this. So I said, well, I might have to come up with a different resolution because it's too hard for us to move around parked cars on the side of the road when you're trying to sand and plow.
So the change in the law would simply be to eliminate the time frame so that in terms of hours, in the wintertime, no parking along the side, right? That's what we're doing?
Yes. And town of Andover is just like this.
Okay, so we would have to have a public hearing, right, for a change in the town, amending the town law?
Correct.
But at this point, how does the board feel about this? Does this seem reasonable?
I have a question where it says the law is about all night parking. And by removing those hours, I see the point there, but is that saying that now there's no parking at any time?
Only between November 1st to May
Right,
1st.
right, I understand that. But no parking on any roads at any time of the day. That's what, I just want to make sure I understand what it's saying.
Correct. That's how Andover's doing the same thing.
Okay,
Because I don't know when I'm going to go out with the plow truck.
that's true, absolutely.
Hey, Dan, can that be in public hearing?
I lost you, Jim.
Yeah.
Say that again.
Can that be an addendum to the law versus having to go through the whole process of reinstituting the law?
I think because it's an amendment to an existing local law, you have to do the whole process again.
Okay.
Any other comments on this? I think we would need a,
Would there be any concern with it being enforced, Jim, by APD?
Are you asking me or Bob?
I was asking Jim.
Oh, okay,
I'm
good.
Say that again. I wasn't paying attention.
wondering if there would be any enforcement implications with the police being asked to enforce it now round the clock for the winter.
Right. Well, if it's not part of the law right now and they can park there under the conditions that exist, then there's no, you can't give them a ticket for something that they're for an apparent no reason.
Right.
Correct? But if you were to institute an addendum, all all it would be is just changing the law and notifying the public that there was a change in the law.
So we wouldn't intend to put up any signage, any signage changes, Bob?
Well, we got
I think
them,
it's posted on the website.
right, but we have signs up that we have to change. Because there's signs up now that have this time on there, so I have to change them, the signs from November 1st to May 1st.
Yeah.
If we did this. So I'd have to do every road that comes into the town.
Mhm. Okay.
So there would be some signs we'd have to change.
Any other comments on this? These are all good points. I don't see that enforcement by APD would be any problem once they're aware of the change in the law.
Think they're gonna go out and patrol the back roads of the town of Alfred?
I think if we went and asked them, they'd probably start doing it, especially if they know the law changed.
Well, and you'd be able to report it too, Bob, if you were out and saw one parked along the road, hopefully before you hit it,
Correct.
report it to the police.
In a way, though, a person's access to his own property would be restricted. He would have to have access to his driveway and that's it, right?
You're saying if someone had no off-street parking?
Well, if a person had a property and he parked along the road just to access his own property, he couldn't do it legally, correct?
That's
Yeah.
correct. That's right away. It's the town's right away.
Yeah, he's gonna be in the town right away.
Okay.
I'm only asking from November 1st to May 1st.
Right.
During hunting season. That's when the people out in the country go to their country properties during hunting season.
Well, they can go. They just can't park on the shoulder. They can park in their property anywhere in their property. They just can't park along the shoulder because it is part of the village or the town right away.
Yeah, I see your point, Bill, but seems like also a valid safety concern.
It's kind of a hazard for us. Plow trucks try to zigzag around vehicles.
Yeah.
What are you
All
gonna
right.
do if somebody? What's gonna happen if a plow truck hits somebody's vehicle on the side of the road? Who's gonna be at fault? It's gonna be me.
Same one that's at fault when they take down half a dozen mailboxes.
Yeah, it's gonna be me.
Yeah. That,
Other comments?
Matthew commented in the chat. He's says he thinks we may end up having to put in more culverts for access if we go this route, which is a valid point.
Doesn't this follow the state's winter parking though on roads? You're not allowed to park on a state highway.
Yeah, what is the law on a state highway or a county road?
I think on a county you can't park on the road. I'm not sure about the state, but I think the county you cannot be on the side of the road.
You think, but you don't know for a fact, right?
No, but I'll find out.
As far as people accessing their own properties, people that have hunting camps, have a driveway, they've got a way to get in. And people that have land apart from their own residential area, if they work it at all, have got a culvert to get over to their property. So I think it's fairly unlikely that somebody would have to access their own land and not have a means to get off the road to do so. I'm just thinking about people along our road and other roads that have property. When they access it, they've got some sort of culvert driveway to get to it.
And if I gotta put the culvert, usually the homeowner buys the pipe anyways, and I just gotta install it. Or the landowner.
Is this a relatively new problem, Bob, or have we just worked around it in the past?
I think you just been working around it, but you know, I had a car up on Lake Road. There's a half a dozen car. I can name some roads off. I got people doing it up on Cook Road. I got people doing it on, there's a half a dozen cars up Randolph that do it.
No, I understand that. I was just curious, you know, if we
Just
just
the other
worked
night
around
when
it
that-
for that long.
When I was in the plow truck and this all occurred, I stood right there and watched it happen, and I didn't know what was going to happen. Luckily, the guy turned and decided not to hit the plow truck. He hit the parked car because the lady left it there.
Right.
Okay, so I think if we're going to move forward on this, we would need to adopt a resolution to modify or amend the existing law, and then we would go to a public hearing probably before the next board meeting. So are there any more comments on this? These have all been good points. Is there a motion that we adopt this change as proposed by Bob?
I'll make a motion.
Okay, Fian, thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Wendy. More discussion? Pro or con?
I think it's definitely a big enough change that we should make sure the public's aware of our consideration. I mean, I know that the notice goes out, but that's a somewhat significant change to
Yeah, it is.
how some
Big
people live.
change.
I would feel more comfortable if I knew exactly what the county procedure is, if the county restricts it myself.
The neighboring town, Bill, is doing the same thing. Town of Andover, you can't park on the side of their roads neither during these months.
Well,
They did it.
I understand. I'm talking about the county, Bob, not the town.
Okay, other comments on this? Okay, I'm going to call the question. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Got
Aye.
one. Okay, hold your hands up if you're voting for it. So I got Ian, I got me, I got Matthew,
Wendy,
and I got Wendy.
yeah.
All right, so we got 4 opposed. We got 1. Okay, the motion passes. And we will have to have a public hearing before the next meeting. And we'll take everyone's advice and make sure this is well publicized. Okay, thank you all. Next item on my agenda. The planning board was going to work to modify the format of the building permit so that it was inclusive of SEQR and other things. Where does that stand, Bill?
Well, right at the present time, we're trying to drill it down to a reasonable size document with a series of questions that will then indicate whether a seeker is necessary and what type of seeker will be required.
Okay, so it's in
Right.
process.
Right now, we've got about 13 pages of documents that are relevant to the building permit. What we need to do is drill it down to a few questions that will then indicate whether any of these documents need to be filled out as part of their application or as information for our code enforcement officer.
Okay,
So it is a process and we are working on it.
good. Well, thanks, pardon me. Thanks to the planning board for working on this.
One question that came up is, at least in my mind, is does our permitting process cover the village?
No,
It does not.
no,
So they have a building permit application?
yes. They have their own zoning and code enforcement officer and their own building and zoning application and zoning laws.
Okay, so I know that I took a look at the Village of Wellsville's building permit application. And it's nice and clean and extensive because it's a populous area. But it had some good aspects to it, and I forwarded that to Bill. And I think we should take a look at the village's building permit application as another example. Have we looked at that, Bill?
We have not yet. I haven't been able to find it on their website yet.
It's there. I'm pretty sure. I
Could
just
could
printed
you
it off, so.
Could you possibly download it and email it to me, Jim?
I can do that for you, Bill. I sure will. See if I can do that right now.
Okay, good. Once again, thanks to the planning board. Last month, it was suggested that we contact Roger McGraw to fill the vacant seat on the planning board. And I spoke with Roger and he wanted to consider it. But although he was flattered with the invitation, he declined to join the planning board. So I will ask the planning board to give it some more thought and maybe come forward with another name or two of a person who might be a good addition. Or anyone else who has an idea, you can forward it to the planning board. The other thing is on our agenda, so we'll get to that. We do have to set up an organizational meeting for the new year. This is another one for the planning board. I got a call from Walter Mason, who is one of the principals in the Alfred Community Solar. And he was asking me a question about trees versus shrubbery. And I wasn't exactly clear, but I think what I'd like to do is just have him contact you, Bill, because you're going to be able to answer that question much easier than I. Would that be okay?
Yeah, that would be fine. How long ago did you speak with Walt?
I did not speak to him. I had a voicemail today.
Okay.
Oh,
Because Lee and I spoke about 2 weeks ago. She was concerned about some of the wording in the law about trees that were, several trees that were in excess of 6 inches in diameter. And according to the way the law is written, that we would like to see as few as possible trees over 6 inches in diameter taken down as is feasibly possible to still produce the project. So
Okay.
they have, I think she said it was around 6 or 8 trees that are eligible out of about 40 around the property. And so I explained to her that if she could minimize the number of those size trees, then she would be in compliance with the law. So if Walt wants to contact me and he has a question, I'd be happy to talk to him.
Okay, yeah, apparently there's some misunderstanding there. So I'll give him your email address or phone number. What should I do?
Either one is fine.
Okay,
I don't know if you can see this. Let me see. I can. This is what they submitted, and this says that every tree in this photo is going to be removed.
Okay.
So I don't know. I don't know if you looked at that, Bill, when you went through it or not.
We did look at it, and they had on the back of one of the documents, they had a complete inventory of the sizes of the trees they would be taking down.
Yep.
And we didn't see anything out of the ordinary there as far as clearing their space. The only question I had was about how tall they wanted to leave their stumps. They were talking about cutting them, leaving them no higher than 4 inches off the ground.
That's what it says. Yep.
Which when I brush hog my fields, that would take care of my brush hog. Be in shambles.
Yeah,
But-
it was a total of 53 trees.
Yeah. Of various sizes, right?
Yep. 29 less than 8 inches, 21 greater than 8 inches, and 3 greater than 24 inches.
Yep.
That area used to be a field, not in my lifetime at least.
I was going to say it was listed as a pasture before.
Yeah.
A horse pasture.
Yeah. Jim had a comment?
Yeah, I just got an email back from Justin Henry, and he said that the county right-of-way is typically 33 feet from center, and it depends on the road as far as parking along the edge of the road or on the shoulder of the road. I asked him about as if it applies to back roads, and he hasn't replied back yet, but he probably will.
okay. The last thing I had was, I think we have to set up our rotation for visiting the village board meeting. I don't know if anybody had been, well, it's probably too late for December, right? Because you guys met Tuesday night. Did anybody go to that meeting? Okay, well, let's, can we set up who wants to attend the village board meetings for the next 6 months or 5 months, starting with January?
I can do January.
So January would be the 12th, right?
Right.
Who said that? Wendy?
Jim.
I can do January.
Thank you.
If I go in February, Jim, it's my birthday. Do I get a prize or anything?
Or baked goods.
We'll bake a cake.
Careful, you're on record.
Are you volunteering?
The virtual cake.
I think I'll pass on February if I can.
Okay,
I'll
do we-
March.
Anybody
take
want to do
February.
February?
I can
I'll
take
do
February as long as it's not a snowstorm.
Okay, Matthew, February, thank you. And then March, Fian, is that you?
Yeah, I'll take March. March 9th.
March 9.
I'll do April, Dan, if you want me to.
Okay.
That would be April
That would be the 13th, second Tuesday.
7:30.
Yeah. And that would leave me with May, which would be the 11th. And I'm going to put that in my calendar right now, or I'll forget it. Okay, thank you all. Town clerk's report, anything, Jan, in terms of marriage licenses and?
Yeah, just the usual. And then I sent you all the resolution that the health, New York State retirement is we are required to do. And that needs to be approved by the board. Then it will be, it's posted out here. And it has to be posted for 30 days.
So when do we have to act on that?
Next month,
Okay,
after it's been posted for the 30 days.
okay. Okay, the next thing, committee reports.
I do need, you actually have to have a motion to approve that.
Tonight?
Yeah, saying that we did the, yeah. Yep.
And do you want to, what's the language of that motion, Jan?
It just says that the foregoing with the original resolution passed by such board. That's all. And then began on the date and continued for at least 30 days. And the resolution was available to the public at the town website and the board out here.
Okay, I guess that's the motion I want to advance. Do you want to restate that? So,
Yeah, I'll put just approving the standard work date and reporting resolution for elected and appointed officials.
okay, I've moved that. Is there a second?
Second.
I'll second.
Okay, Bill, thank you. Discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Okay, that carries. Thank you.
Jan, do you want me to upload the form that you sent us, or do you have a resolution that you want to?
No, the form that I sent you is the actual resolution that we submit to the state. So the
Okay.
one that I sent you is fine.
Okay. I think
I crossed out social security numbers on that one, right?
you did. I almost think I might be able to make them out though. I'll redact it digitally.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks. Yeah, I don't want their social security numbers on the website.
Okay. If there's nothing else, I want to go to committee reports having to do with NICIC. And you all got a copy of the letter from the legal counsel for NICIC. And we had responses from Fred and from Sean and from Theon. To start this off, I'd just like to summarize where I think we are and then turn it over to the board. We got this letter from Benjamin Botello, and the first point, he indicates that utilities are exempt from review under NEPA, and we don't agree with that. His second point is that the CEQA is inapplicable here, and we don't agree with that.
Do that.
His third point is that, well, he didn't bother to give us any of the frequencies from these antennas under the auspices that I presume they're regulated by the FCC and not us. And then in the fourth one, he gave no targets for where these antennae are going to be pointing. So two things. One, is that roughly the way everybody understands this? And two, if it is, where do we go from here?
Are you still on, Fred?
I am.
I think we are entitled to more information from NICIG than they're giving. I don't understand why, if this is something that they don't expect to be disagreed on, that they would not give us this information readily, other than quite possibly they realize that we're going to have some pushback on some of this, that they are not taking into consideration the health and welfare of the people living around their facility. Even though they have the substation, they have not given us what we've asked for as far as information to complete our due diligence on their building permit. They have given us the names and the models of the arrays that they're going to put on this tower, but they haven't given us the frequencies. They haven't given us the RFR readings or any of that technical information that we've asked for. Now, in most cases, I'd say we wouldn't know what they were giving us if they did give us all this technical information, that we would have to go to an expert to have it explained to us. But fortunately, we have someone on our planning board who does understand this and can give us an opinion on whether we're in a safe situation for the people that are living in the neighborhood, for the people that are working at Southern Tier Concrete, that are working at Tinkertown. These people are all going to be affected by what comes out of the equipment mounted on that tower. So I think that we need to go back to them and demand the information or rescind their building permit, or at least suspend it until they do a seeker study.
I agree, Bill. I thought that the email that Fian sent was pretty clear that we're solidly asking for what is required.
Right. And the information that Fred has relayed, especially about the fact that in the town of Alfred, the committee for action is the town board, not necessarily the planning board or the zoning board of appeals or anything like that. The planning board is an advisory board only. The town board makes the decisions on the building permits and on the issuance of the permits to applicants. The planning board has no authority to grant permits or turn them down. We can make recommendations, but it's not within our authority to grant them or deny them. Am I correct, Fred?
That's the definition in the public law for building permits and
In the zoning law.
in the zoning law, yeah. And it's clearly states that makes your decisions discretionary, and which means that seeker is triggered when you make such a decision. And so you have the right to, as he's saying you don't, but you do have the right to request a seeker review. The important thing about a seeker review is that it will bring out so many of the questions that we have. And during scoping, after they fill out the initial short form, we fill out the short form part 2, which is a verification, and that's the opportunity for us to ask for information. And it's the perfect setting for the town board to say, okay, here's the types of information that we want. And the public can also be involved in the scoping. And so then they have to fill out the long form and provide that information. There is some other questions about the height of the antennas. It's a shorter pole, but it functions like a full-blown tower. And when you look at the equipment that they're planning, this is a full-blown communications tower. And we're operating without a ordinance, without a zoning law for the placement of towers. And so the idea is that if the building permit is denied, we then have a window of opportunity to put a zoning ordinance in place that would apply. I have researched the idea that we could control this with zoning would apply after this building permit has been issued, and I don't believe that that is correct. So if we issue a building permit now, it's a Trojan horse for them to do a lot of different things with their intensive metering system that they're proposing for the region. And we should have input to that to protect people in the village, to protect the school properties and people in the rural areas of the township from the arbitrary positioning of antennas and transmitters. This would this authorization would carry over into them having authorization to expand their system. And if those antennas, the targets for those antennas will be broadcasting back. So they have all of these very powerful small antennas that will be sending signals back. And when you look at the development, all the wires and all the gadgets that have been put on our poles coming up through Main Street already, we had no say in that. And that's, there would be more of that, and they would be on buildings, and there would be banks of them on multiple dwellings. So we need to take this opportunity, in my opinion, to back up 2 steps. It might be uncomfortable, but we need to back up 2 steps and say we don't have adequate information to evaluate this permit. And we have an obligation. Now, I've sent to you the state building code, which says you're supposed to be doing seeker. And I do believe that this is an unlisted action. And they said that this is not a listed action. Well, that's not, it's an unlisted action. And that says that you should be doing at least the short form assessment, which leads you into, do you need to go further? This whole thing, there's also what's called a statement of need when you're putting in a tower or you're putting in an antenna on a building. And that is very much done with these types of applications. Why? We have 6 antennas in close proximity servicing this valley. And the township has, the big antennas servicing the township. There is no need for this. They want to be able to do more in terms of data transfer, but data transfer is not regulated by FCC. Only communications with cell phones and voice transmissions. So when you really dig into the laws, they're blowing smoke at us here, and refusing to answer the questions, the tough questions. So in my recommendation, you should rescind the building permit, and then we should begin the work of putting an ordinance in that protects the public. And there are ways in which we can do that. They'll tell us our hands are tied. That's not true.
Other comments on this from anybody?
One thing that I was thinking is their lawyer, he said something about, the antennas being regulated by the FCC, but how do we even verify that? Are they going through some sort of parallel process through the FCC to make sure that their application is proper for the setting, or no?
The FCC does not do that, and long term they will not do that unless there is a formal complaint that they are ordered to do it. They have a tiger team that comes out to measure, are they staying in the guidelines. But if we had an ordinance, we can require them to have an independent engineer evaluate yearly, or I've seen some that are every 5 years, to write a report as to whether or not these antennas are meeting the guidelines. And if those guidelines change, which they're liable to, then we need an assurance which can be built into an ordinance. And that's the beauty of setting up an ordinance. And they can be liable to pay for that.
So they've basically been just doing whatever they want because nobody's really overseeing the process of where these things are getting put.
I don't think that's completely accurate. The FCC regulates their license, which is for a VHF trunk system. And that system uses a frequency that's the same one the fire service uses or the antenna on my house runs. So I don't know about the dish. I can't do the math this late at night on what frequency that dish is putting out. But a 3-foot diameter dish is very likely in the VHF range too. And we're not talking 5G here. We're talking the same frequency that the town truck uses. So
Sure.
I'm not arguing against getting more information out of their lawyer, but we may have a hard time limiting that without limiting every other ham radio and emergency radio and town radio in the town.
But they have a panel of 4G LTE panels that are going on this also. And those are not dishes using VHF.
I guess I missed those on the plans. I'm sorry.
There's a major, and then there's a WiMAX level broadcasting unit on there also. This is a full-blown commercial communications tower. It's not just those 6-foot dishes up on top. There's a listing on page 4, I think it is, next to the diagram, simple diagram of the tower. Up above that is a square that has the listing of all the radios and the antenna arrays.
Yeah, thank you, Fred. I'm going to look at that. I'm sorry, I must have missed that when I looked at that.
Yeah, but no, this is a much more serious, and that's where I asked the statement of need, because we've got numerous antennas that do that in the valley already. And why they wouldn't use those systems is a mystery to me. There is history of independent contractors building these and then leasing them to the industry and for the purposes of specialty programming and the increased data transfer. We know they're going to put in smart meters, and we should be on top of the installation of smart meters. We definitely should be on top of that. They're going to put smart meters on our gas metering. That's in the works also. And all of these are transmit. Where is the straw that breaks the camel's back in terms of exposure in the valley and in our urban areas? And this all could be handled with seeker review and with a good solid ordinance. We can protect, we can set distances. And in answer to your question, or one of your statements, Chris, the distance and the power being emitted is important. Most of these transmissions are from towers that are a distance away from us. These are going to be right on the street, and this one is right near the chicken farm, the businesses, Tinkertown and the block factory, the karate studio, a couple of private homes within 300 feet.
I understand all that, Fred. I got similarly powerful antennas on the tower that's on top of Mullen there, where my repeater is. I don't see a threat from the VHF. I gather that you do. I don't.
We're not talking about VHF.
You're talking about the WiMAX at 2.5 gig, but we have those antennas all over as well. Like we have a lot of them. And it does seem odd to put it right in front of that ridge of stone at 195 feet. You're not getting a ton of extra coverage, which is why I tend to think that maybe they do want to have that trunked VHF line going into it. But I don't really have a horse in this race. Luckily, I've got my repeater on an antenna already. So.
Well, yeah, Chris, I should note the plans I think you're looking at where the original height was noted at 195 feet. That has been dropped to, what is it, 95 feet?
80 feet.
80.
So it will be lower.
That's really baffling. Yeah.
and they're putting the base of a 200-foot tower in. I'd be willing to bet that that's a strong enough tower that they have the opportunity to extend it, which is telling also.
Dan or Fian, I'd be curious your perspective on our suspending the building permit since they denied answering the questions until they have answered those questions based on the information you presented in that email, Fian. I mean, that seems to be pretty clearly outlining that they are required to answer that information.
I agree.
Yeah, it's I should have probably included in my email that the thought that all that stuff that I mentioned being, in my mind, true, it still represents a fairly significant initiative on the part of the town to take them to task on this. You know, I don't know what we had talked, I think, a couple of meetings ago about the possibility of not necessarily a full revocation or rescinding of the permit, but it's, you know, a stop work order or something like that. That would be something I guess we could ask our attorney if there was a way to more softly assert that we need some other things done and some more information without actually revoking the permit.
Right. Suspend until the questions are answered, et cetera.
Right.
Because it seemed as though some of the points that their lawyer were making, you know, were just him talking lawyerese, thinking that nobody was going to challenge it. Some of them seemed, you know, patently untrue. So it seems quite reasonable to suspend the permit till those things are answered, at least.
I think it's a reasonable request. I'm just wondering what it's going to represent in terms of, you know, litigation costs on the part of the town. We really, you know, if we go forward with it, we have to be prepared to go to court if they decide to do that. And they're a Spanish-owned international company, so they've got some deep pockets.
So let me ask you what happened when you went against fracking, and you put in a temporary moratorium and then a permanent ban against fracking in the village. You stood up and you did what was right. And that was, you knew that was going to be uncomfortable and that there might be litigation. You also, my impression is that you have insurance. You made a mistake. Our board, we made a mistake when that building permit was issued without doing seeker. It was an error. And you by law do not have the right to do that. You need to rectify that error. And just suspending it pending more information, I'm not sure that satisfies that. I think you should cancel the building permit and take the bull by the horns and say, no, we are going to put an ordinance in place, and then we're going to entertain additional antennas and towers and broadcasting equipment. This is a very dangerous thing to public safety, to exposure and public health. This is a very dangerous thing, the most dangerous thing you've possibly ever been involved with. So
two comments there, Fred, with regard to your inquiry. Fortunately, when we dealt with fracking, we had a volunteer attorney, David Slotchy from Ithaca, who worked for free and did a great job. Secondly, we do have liability insurance. So I presume that would, and we would have to investigate this more thoroughly, cover our costs in litigation to some degree. And in answer to Matthew's inquiry, the way I'm hearing the discussion, it seems like we're saying that we want to rescind this building permit or issue a stop work order, and I'm not really sure what the legal ramifications of doing one or the other is. and also request that we want answers to the questions that we initially posed in order, and including a statement of need and a seeker before we move forward on this. I think that's what the group is saying, or what the board is saying. Is that a good characterization of what's going on?
Yeah, I think so.
With that in mind, Dan, would it make sense first to present that that line of thinking to Mike Finn, and not
Yeah.
even asking for his in-depth legal analysis any more than what it would take to say, to give us a, I don't know, if you can give us a ballpark figure of what ramifications might look like.
I would also,
Go ahead, Matthew.
if we're going to go to him with that kind of a question, I would also ask him if he thinks there's any advantage or disadvantage to a stop work versus a revocation.
Yeah.
May I point out one thing, Dan?
Yeah, please.
The original letter that we waited for a month or more from the attorney stated that they're liable to object to us canceling the permit. However, they would lose in a court of law, and they would not be awarded any damages as a result of that. It is the history, and his letter actually said that.
Yeah, but there's one thing he left out. And you're right, Fred, on that. But that letter that was a citation from another case that didn't address the fact that whether or not the town incurred any losses that were assessed for loss of income beyond the stop work order. So that's still unknown. But you're right. If we brought this recension of the work order, that would be upheld. The only question is, would we be liable to any kind of damages?
The only damages that courts have awarded are they tell you to issue the permit. That is the only decisions that have been precedents in the court cases regarding this. And you can check that. But the bottom line is there has not been any damages awarded other than telling you, you have to order the permit. You have to issue the permit. And so you'd be, the expense would be legal representation, which we're thinking should be covered by your errors and omissions for directors and officers.
I agree with half of what you said. That's not my understanding of what Mike Finn told me, but we'll leave that aside for right now.
Okay.
I want to get back to whether it's the consensus of the board that we should issue either a stop work or recension of the building permit, and also another demand for answers to the questions that we submitted in the sequel. Is that the building consensus of the board?
Yeah, I think at minimum,
I
we
think so.
have to do a stop work order until they have answered those questions. And if they refuse to answer those questions, we have to do a rescission.
Okay, I'm going to assume that this is what is the building consensus. I'm thinking that what we should do is first thing, send a letter to Mike Finn, or contact Mike Finn. And I want to ask him what the difference is between the stop work and a recension of the building permit. And then based on his advice, or then coming back via email to the board, given that information, which way we want to go, issue either a stop work or rescind the building permit, and also a restatement of what our requirements are in order to lift the recension or the stop work order. How does that sound?
That sounds good, Dan.
Yeah, as long as we can make sure he doesn't drag us out a month on that.
Well, yeah, well, there's no guarantee on that.
They haven't started work on this tower yet, have they, Dan?
I've not seen it. I'd look every time I go by. I have not seen that.
I drove several weeks ago, I drove in and around to the back side of it, and it didn't look like anything had been initiated where the tower was supposed to be located. Doesn't look like they've done anything. So quite possibly with winter coming on, we might have bought ourselves a little time.
I hope you're right. There are a couple things here that I would like to get cleared up. For example, Fred, you can answer this. Where they say they're not subject to NEPA, they don't give any citations to back that up. And I'm thinking, should that be one of the requests we make of them?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Show us in the actual Telecommunications Act or in the subsequent FCC regulations where it states that that this is not required. I did do some searching, and you do see some conditional exclusions for certain situations, but they're from agencies like airports and from public transportation looking at NEPA. So they got far enough into the NEPA process to issue a declaration of insignificance. And that's all part of the NEPA process. So for them to just say, no, NEPA doesn't apply, and they'd have to show us the
Okay.
exact example. Yeah.
Okay, and now number two. Are we going to argue this with them? In other words, as far as additional information that we want them to supply before we would let them go forward, we want them to prove that their statement is true, or are we just going to reject it out of hand, or what do we want to do about that?
Well, I know personally that when they revised seeker, they talked about making towers and the placement of antennas a type 2 action, and that was shot down by DEC and the people in charge of seeker. So we know it is not a type 2 action. That leaves either type 1 or unlisted. And I do firmly believe this is an unlisted action. And unlisted actions require you as the permitting agency to review it under seeker.
And if it's a type 1?
It's definitely reviewed.
Definitely, right.
So do we want to like restate that in our letter to them, or would that be your recommendation, or?
Sure, it's an unlisted action that,
Okay.
that requires determination of significance by our town board as the lead agency that is doing the review.
Okay.
And discretionary, making a discretionary decision.
Okay. And then number 3, I don't know if we can really argue that fact that the FCC has jurisdiction. That doesn't really preclude the things that we're requesting.
Well, their combined power coming out of these arrays, all of them combined, might be beyond what FCC allows for that distance from a house or from a public trail, sidewalk. Okay, and so they might indeed. We have no idea. They're saying that they're going to meet FCC regulations. We have no idea whether that's doable or not, because we don't have enough information. The effective radiative power.
So is it our obligation to find out what the FCC regulations are, or how do we
No,
get that
we
information?
should ask them to provide the ones that they're saying they're going to meet. They're saying we're going to meet the FCC regulations. Okay, which ones are they? There's many.
Okay.
And we don't have a determination by FCC as to what title installation this is. They have a title 1, 2, and 3, I believe. We don't even know because the regulations are different. So we don't even know, and that's where the NEPA review comes in. It gives it all of the necessary classifications that you need to key on whether or not what they're saying is indeed accurate or applicable.
Okay. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to call Mike Finn, tell him what our thinking is, get his recommendation or explanation of work stoppage and a recension of the work order. I'm going to draft a letter, and then I'm going to email that information to the town board and the planning board for your review, edit, additions, corrections,
Clarity, yeah.
and then we'll ship it out. Does that sound reasonable?
Yeah.
Yeah. Fian just shared a link in the chat, and it looks like we've got pretty easy footing for suspension or revocation through the New York State Building Code. So I think we definitely should move forward in that way, Dan.
Okay. I don't know if we need a motion to do this.
We can, just to be sure.
Do we
No,
need a motion to do this, Jan?
no, you're just, you're
Making a
just the
decision.
supervisor. You have the right to contact the town attorney based on this discussion to
Okay.
ask, to gather more information.
All right.
And it looks like, would this be something that we would issue, or would we need to have our code enforcement officer issue the suspension?
I assume Steve would issue it, but we can clarify that when the time comes.
Okay.
That's what it looks like here in the building code section. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it notes the code enforcement officer being the one
Right.
to issue the revocation.
Well, let's hope they don't kill the messenger.
Yeah.
I got a feeling Steve can take care of himself.
I think so.
Okay, anything else on this topic for this evening? I think this has been a good discussion, and I want to thank everybody for bringing their opinions and knowledge forth. Is there anything else that we need to?
I would like to thank Fred and Sean Highland for the work they did on this. Reading these regulations is a lot like talking to a lawyer or reading a law book. It goes round and round and round, and you almost have to start separating the wheat from the chaff before you find out what it really says.
Right.
So thanks to Fred and to Sean for going through all of this.
I will second
And
that.
I will second it.
I'll third it.
All right. I think we have at least one more thing to do this evening, and that is we have to set up a year-end meeting.
Hey, Dan,
Yes,
I had one comment before you get to that.
yes.
Have we had any updates from the assessor, and what did we talk about? I thought we were going to get like a quarterly update from her
We have not.
on how things were going and whatnot.
It was my intention to have her Zoom on to our meeting just to, after the tax bills have all been paid, maybe in February, or have her tell us. For example, our assessed valuation went up by $1 million in the town. It'd be interesting to know how that happened. And just give us a report on what's going on. I've talked to her periodically, but I haven't asked her to come, and I'm glad you brought that up because I think she should Zoom onto one of our meetings.
Just so you know, she has been off of work for a couple weeks. She is back now, though. So
She was
has not-
quarantining.
She has not been in the office due to illness, but she is back now.
Okay, anything else that we should talk about before setting up this year-end meeting?
Any updates about the sidewalk?
The only update I got was the Clark Patterson is going to initiate the CEQA process. They'll be doing all the work. That's the most recent thing I am aware of.
And they were taking the lead in talking to the homeowners?
No, I have taken the lead. I have made a
Okay.
list of all the property owners and their property address and their mailing address. And when we have the video set and when we're ready to go, I will send a letter
Okay.
to all the property owners telling them that there's a video to explain it. The letter I send will be roughly explaining it, seeking their feedback. And then we hope to we'll follow that with a public hearing. So that's the sort of like the 3-step sequence.
I had two thoughts on that, Dan. One was if you'd gotten a chance to bring the things we talked about to them as far as the sidewalk up past the Alfred State buildings.
Right.
And I can't remember what the other part was.
The
And then
other
the
part
other thing,
was the bus stop in front of Tinkertown.
right, yep. And then the other thing that I had the thought about the other day that I thought was kind of interesting for us, I don't think that it really necessarily changes anything with the project, but there's been a lot of discussion about this being town versus village with the grant, with the maintenance, whatnot. And almost half of this project's actually within the village boundary, the whole area up along by Alfred State. And I was not aware of that before.
Yeah, it's about 0.6 of a mile, and about a third of that is Alfred State.
Which that's all within the village limits, I believe.
Yes,
Yes.
all the way up to Ben Palmer's.
Right. So they would have been responsible to maintain that anyway. So really the only expansion for them is from Ben Palmer's down to Dollar General, not the whole length.
Right. Right, and we've highlighted the fact that it's a shared service
Right.
in the sense that, you know, we clean out the sewage
All
plant
the
every
sludge,
summer,
yeah.
make multiple trips
Yeah.
to Bath for them. And both streets crew and our town road crew work together all the time, so.
Absolutely. I just thought that was interesting to note, you know, for
Yeah.
those that are members of the town.
Yes. And it's good that you brought that forward, and all of us, as we get various comments from residents, it's useful to bring them forward just so we're all aware of the thinking in the community.
Can I offer something as your seeker advisor?
Yes,
When you initiate the seeker process, as I assume that the town is going to be lead agency, you have the right to ask other agencies, concerned agencies, for their opinions. And along that would be the state university system, that would be the village. They have a equal standing just below the lead agency as agencies of concern or interest. And any other agencies that might be the county with the County Road 12. I don't know if that's involved, but New York State DOT would be an agency that would be actually involved in the seeker process.
Okay.
And they would issue a comment along with the public.
okay. That's good information, Fred, thanks. Any other comments about anything before we set up our year-end meeting?
One more thing, Dan. I
Yes.
don't mean to belabor the issue, but Bob and I had a little sidebar. I posted in the chat. Bob got some commentary right from Justin at the county, and he states that their policy is to not park on the roadway during a snow or ice event. Parked vehicles are a hazard. On. Do we want to consider adding verbiage like that instead during a snow or ice event to alleviate some of the concerns with property owners having a hard time with this? Or
That's a good point. Bob, what do you think?
I think it's all right. Yeah, because I talked to Justin Henry, and that's what they got. That's what they do. If there's a vehicle there, that they get a hold of sheriff, and the sheriff gets it removed.
So does it seem like that kind of language would be workable from your
Probably.
point of view, Bob?
Yeah.
Dan, I also got a hold of Justin as well, and he mentioned that the verbiage is under section 13 in the county ruling. So you can go there and probably pick up some information as how to correctly address it.
I like that idea. I think we could word it in such a way that it gives a fair bit of leeway. You know, you could make it within 48 hours or something, so that there's not a question of, well, was it snowing now or not?
Okay, do we want to maybe revoke the resolution that we passed this evening and revisit this next meeting and have some, I don't want us to put together some language here in the last 5 minutes that we think is going to work, and then in the light of day, it doesn't seem so good. I'm just wondering, do we want to change the language of this for next meeting?
I agree.
I think that if you're gonna do it, yeah, that we better make sure it's right so we don't have to keep changing it. It just
Jan,
doesn't,
is that something that we could work without being at the meeting, or is that not legal?
well, you're gonna have, you can come up with the wording and just let me know and I can type it up. And then you'd present it at the public hearing. I mean, I'd send it out to everybody to approve, you know, to look it over and say, yeah, that looks good. And then you have your public hearing. So yeah, you wouldn't have to have a meeting just to get the wording done. My concern about this is we can't call the sheriff to come remove cars. And I don't doubt we're gonna be able to call the Village of Alfred Police to come and remove cars, because I doubt they'll respond. So I don't think you're gonna be able to put that in there. I mean, during the ice and snow event, but as far as, I don't know, you're gonna get to have come up and remove cars.
I think it's more just having somebody to initiate enforcement, you know, contacting the owner or writing a ticket or whatever.
Okay, I'm going to make a proposal. I want to move a motion to rescind or to delete or whatever the proper language is.
How about
The
table
motion.
it?
Pardon me?
How about table it?
Well, I want to delete the motion we already passed tonight about adopting the language to amend the road law. And then I think we should, and we can work out the language via email over the next couple of weeks, come up with language that's going to represent modification that we're all comfortable with. Does that sound reasonable?
Yes, it does, Dan.
Do we have to delete it in order to be able to modify it?
Well, we've already got one law on the books, and we
Right.
passed a resolution to amend it. Now
Right.
we'd be amending the amendment. I don't know which is cleaner or correct.
Right.
I was just going to unamend the amendment or whatever that would be. Somebody
Yeah,
knows Robert's Rules of Order, they could help us out here.
Whatever's the cleanest way to keep us moving forward.
Yeah, I'm following your line of thinking, Dan.
Okay. All right, so I'm going to move a motion. I don't know if this is right or wrong, that we delete,
I think
rescind.
rescind was the best way to do it, Dan. Rescind
Okay.
the previous motion.
Okay, thank you, Jan. I move that we rescind the previous motion to amend the road law. Is there a second?
Second.
I'll second it, Dan.
Okay, Bill's second. Discussion? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, and now, this is not going to be a motion, but let's work with Bob and the rest of the board to come up with some language that we're all going to be comfortable with and get that done before the next board meeting. How does that sound?
Good.
Hey, Dan,
Yeah,
as road supervisor, does Bob have the authority to put a temporary parking ban on the town roads due to weather conditions? He did that at one point, I believe it was Palmer Road, when the
Oh, yeah.
log truck was tearing it up.
Well, we put a road weight limit on. I don't know, Bob, what,
Finally,
you know
we
off the
did,
top of your head?
but I think initially he put a temporary restriction on it.
I don't know that off the top of my head. I don't know if you can do that during the winter months. That's what you got this town law for, I do believe.
Well, I think, why don't we work on this via email, the board and Bob, get some language that'll do what he wants to do.
I would suggest you contact Cornell Local Roads, and I'm sure they probably have a sample law that we could
Yeah.
use.
Okay, that's a good idea, Jan. Okay, then let's work on that in the next week or two. And I'll get something around after we get the data together. Okay, now we need to set up the year-end meeting, and I'm going to defer to Jan because she's the one who has to get all the information together. What would be a good date, Jan?
Well, do you want to do a year-end combination organizational meeting and do it all in one meeting? And then we can get whoever, I don't know who needs to get sworn in. I guess no one does. No
No.
one's up for reelection this year.
Correct.
We don't have to do that. So I think we could just either do a reorganization or a year end and do it as one meeting.
When would be a good date?
Good question. I have no idea when I'm going to get taxes. I'm guessing that probably that last week in December at some point we'll get them, but I have not heard anything.
Do you want to then set the meeting up via email when you have the information you need?
Yeah, as soon as I know when I'm going to get the taxes and can get them out. And I mean, it won't take long, the meeting.
So we're thinking the last week in December then sometime.
Yeah, if you want to do the organizational meeting, that do it all in one meeting, do it all at the same time.
That sounds good to me. Is that good for everyone? Do it all at once?
Yeah,
All right, I'll give you plenty of notice.
Okay.
let's just not do it Thursday night, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, why not? Is anybody really going to be partying?
I want to go to bed early.
Party via Zoom, right?
Yeah, we're gonna have a party of two.
Okay, I will definitely let you know.
All right. Anything else we need to discuss tonight? Okay, I want to thank
I got a
everybody.
real quickie here. I just got a hold of the bridge folks on the Pine Street Bridge because we're putting out the bids for the water line and the sewer project starting this spring. So we needed to know running past Pine Street, and they postponed the project to 2022. So it'll be another extra year.
Are you still planning to start the water line project in 2021?
Yeah, we're starting that. We're going to start on the village side instead of the well side on your end, just to avoid conflict with the sidewalk.
Okay, good. Anything else? Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Dan,
Is there, yeah, Bill? Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Fian. We are adjourned. Thank you all.
Night.
Good night. Have a good evening.
Yeah, Merry
Have a good night.
Christmas, everyone.
Merry Christmas,
Yeah, Merry
everyone, if I don't
Christmas.
see or talk to you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jan.
Stay well, everybody.
Yeah.
Yep.